Hey guys, just still doing some testing on the guitar. Let me know how that sounds in the chat. Good morning. It is May 28th, 2024. So today we're going to finish up the TV series Outer Range. And thanks for the feedback on the guitar sound test yesterday on yesterday's show. I think we got the sound pretty much straightened out. And now I just got to work on my playing abilities because I've been a bit rusty. I've not pulled this guitar out in years. So maybe we'll play a little bit more at the end of today's show. But first, there's lots to cover before we even get into Outer Range today. And first of all, one of you found this. Now, I'm not here to spread disinformation, especially about the Bible. So thank you to the person who sent me this verse from James 5:14. This, I think, is about the only verse in the Bible other than Paul in the one time that he prayed and there was a sick man. It said he prayed and then he healed. But this one actually is a direct connection. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. So there are two solid examples of people praying for people to be healed. Now, Jesus did not do that. Jesus had a different example, but it appears as though there is a precedent for this for the rest of the church. I tend to go with Jesus' example, but here are the facts and the information so that you can make your own decisions about that and about what the Bible actually says. Now, there was a tornado that touched down south of me about 10 miles. I'm learning not to give my exact location of where I'm at. Let's just say, we're getting to these times where all of that's going to do is hurt you, in the end. I think the people have been given enough advance warning, and I've tried to help as many people as I can. And the ones that are here, and the ones that aren't. And it's just, that's what it is, right? But we're getting into some times where the enemy has started to try to infiltrate my life in certain ways that I was actually shocked. I was not prepared for what happened to me, I guess is the word for it. The enemy, that's about all I'm going to say. The enemy is going on all levels right now. He does not want this channel to survive. He wants us distracted. And so therefore, we got to stay on top of it and be a little bit more careful is all I'm saying. Okay. And the devil works through people, doesn't he? He's the one. That's the precedent in the Bible. He's always worked through people. In fact, it's one of the only ways he can deceive us is through people, through entertainment media, and also personal relationships. And so you got to be very careful about who's in your life. Let's put it that way. And not to be paranoid or anything, but if you know that you have a calling of ministry, you better know that the enemy is also going to want to attack you in various ways. Okay, and he uses the people that you love or the people that are in your life to wage that attack. But anyways, this is the tornado, and apparently it touched down about 10 miles south of me. Now, I told you guys that I looked at the tornado map, and the tornadoes do come through my county, but because of the Ozarks, and you can look up maps of this, there's like a pile of mountains is what the Ozarks is. It's a pile of mountains, and tornadoes don't go through mountains. They go in Great Plains. They might slam up against some mountains, but they don't go into mountains because they can't gather enough steam. So the Ozarks did their job. They neutralized the dark portals sweeping across the Midwest. So I didn't have any downed trees or anything even close to my property. But for the people down, even just 10 miles away, a tornado did blow through. I know Cheryl said she saw lots of trees down over by the dam. And so that's unfortunate. A lot of people are still without power. Now, I did lose power for about 30 minutes and then it came right back on, but it was just long enough for me to fire up the generator, make sure it was working correctly. I had my internet, my icebox worked, a mini split to keep it cooled off because it was still hot that morning. And then no sooner had I got it all fired up and was cruising because I was getting ready for the show for that morning. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, the power came back on. But a lot of people are still without power. And out here in the rural areas, it can take 3 to 5 days, sometimes a week for people to get power. So fortunately, I've been trying to, consult with my friends and tell them what I do to prepare for power outages. And I think that all of them are very glad about the decisions that they've made on where they're living, and as well as some hardware that you're going to need in preparation for extended power outages. Now, I know that there are rumors out there about massive power outages for coming into this summer. They're preparing everyone that we're going to have extended power outages. And all I can do, and all I can say is, be prepared. Okay. And I know everyone tells you that, but we are coming upon times that they're actually telling us what they're going to do before they do it. They're telling us there are going to be power outages, right? So it would behoove us to prepare in some way, whatever that may be. It might just be candles. It might be, a way that that you're going to make hot water without any power. It could be something as simple as that. Not everyone can prepare on a larger scale for an outage, but understand that there are neighbors around, and neighbors have basements. I have a neighbor right next door. He invited me over yesterday. I don't really celebrate these holidays, but wonderful neighbor invited me over, made some food around the fire, and just sat and chit-chatted. He's got a full basement. I know that if I need to, I can go over there. Like I said, we don't get tornadoes here in this particular 10 square mile stretch, but if I needed to, I could, go over there, just knock on the door, and he would open his door. Now, for those of you that are still in the mode of possibly still thinking about getting out of where you're at, in preparation for all this chaos that's coming, the election, of course, there's going to be chaos with that, right? They've already planned it. Trump will win, but it's going to be chaos on some level. They're talking about the power outages. So for those of you that are still actually considering getting out of where you're at, there are a couple things, and I'll mention them real quickly before we get into this. I do this to help people. I don't make any money. I don't have a real estate license. I'm putting all the rumors to rest. I don't tell people to do this because I'm making some kind of money off of it. And my friends will tell you that they just showed up. I'm not making any money off of them. And so God is good, isn't he? He for the people that listen, he helps them. But there are some things you need to know. When you buy a property out here, you need to look at the tornado map. And I know there are naysayers out there and they say, oh, well, all bets are off now. No, they're not. Okay. The mountains, there are literally no recorded tornadoes in the Rocky Mountains, for instance. Okay. And so those are naysayers who aren't taking action themselves, and they want to make you doubt what you're doing, right? Look at the tornado map. I did a whole video on it. It wasn't very popular, but I did a whole video, and you can literally look at all the tornado data going back to the 1800s, and you can see if a pinpoint on a map has ever had a tornado blow through there. And then you look and you go, oh, wow, okay, that 5 square mile stretch or has never had a tornado. Why? Why is the question? And then you look and you go, oh, there's mountains there. Right? So this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. Okay. This is all to help you. As a leader, I guess, in this community, I'm supposed to try to help you. I can't just sit here and go, oh, I got it good. I'm not going to share any information with anybody because, I'm not going to put myself out there. Then I'd be a selfish person. Right. But I'm not a selfish person, and I care about you guys. So these are just some things if you're still thinking about this, because, some people have maybe not did their research and got places that are close to where tornadoes were. And so you got to look for that. You've also got to look for unrestricted property. You don't want to buy a property and then realize later that there's a bunch of rules on it that you have to do this or have to do that, which equals money, right? You should also be looking at any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like restrictions, but it's kind of not. It's basically in certain counties, there are lots and lots and lots of rules about what you can and can't do, if you can use certain contractors, if you can't, and all that's going to equate to you spending a lot more money than you would if you could build something yourself, for instance. So I guess that is kind of like, restrictions. But these are things that your realtor won't tell you. They'll just say, oh, it's unrestricted land. Okay, so these are choices and decisions you're going to have to make based on your particular situation. You know, if you're a healthy person, you can get out in the yard and do a lot of the stuff yourself. You might go for it, you know, but if maybe you're disabled or there's other things that you can't do, then you're going to have to go into a different situation. And that's what all this means. Okay. Now, I do have a feeling at some point that insurance companies will no longer cover tornado damage in the Midwest. I believe that's coming. I believe what happened in California was a precursor to widespread change when it comes to house insurance. All right. Now, you're not going to believe this, but I have house insurance. I have State Farm. And I would be dumb not to have house insurance, right? With all of the time and effort and money that I've put into my homestead, it took 5 years to build. I would be dumb not to have insurance, right? Even though it's safe from tornadoes and mostly hail. I don't think I've ever had hail here. No hail. Why is that? It's because it's like a pocket of something, right? Anyway, so State Farm just raised my rates, but believe it or not, it's still super cheap. I have my auto and house insurance bundled, and I pay $100 a month for house insurance and auto. So I think that's a deal, right? But it did go up after the change in what they were doing. And so I anticipate that at some point they won't cover people for tornado damage. They'll say, hey, if you want to live out in those, you know, off the grid or unincorporated areas, or they're going to say, if you want to live outside the 15-minute city, we're not going to cover you. And you got to be prepared for that, right? How do you prepare? Like I just said, find places in the Midwest that aren't susceptible to tornado damage, or much less likely, right? Now, what else is going on? Well, I believe that underground homes might be a wave of the future. Literal basement homes. Now, when I was a child, I had a vision of a home that was on hydraulics, that could be lifted above ground for normal use and then go below ground during an emergency, or even during the summer, maybe when it's hot. And the way I envisioned it wouldn't cost that much money, because essentially all it is, it's a regular old house. It's just on hydraulics and it goes under the ground. Now you're going to have to pay for excavation, but a lot of people already pay for excavation, don't they? When you build a basement home, when you build a basement, you know, you pay for excavation. So that's not a big deal. So, I mean, you can say I probably watched too many cartoons as a child, but that's the vision that I see of the future. Now, if there's some contractor that, you know, is out there listening, I'm sure they're going to take the idea and make billions of dollars making basically homes that submerge under the ground when emergencies come, and they'll build all the homes in the Midwest, and that would completely protect you from a tornado, even a direct hit. The home would like go underground. It would definitely have to have a flat roof or a pitched roof on one side. That would probably be the best use of the underground space. And then it would just simply, you hit a button and the whole thing sinks into the ground, and maybe doors cover the top of it, metal doors or something. I don't know. But anyway, those are just some ideas. You know, people ask me, why don't you come up with solutions? We come up with solutions all the time. It's just you have to be listening. But yeah, we complain about this world order and the controllers because they're oppressing us. I mean, what are we going to lay down and take it? No, we got to talk about it, don't we? But then also along with that comes solutions. Well, speaking of things falling into holes, let's get started by finishing up Outer Range, about a time travel black hole that opens up inside of someone's property. Now, I wouldn't waste your time if you're thinking about trying to screen this series. I wouldn't waste your time trying to see every episode. If you're trying to prioritize, you know, what you're looking at. Now, when I say prioritize, what I mean by that is some of us have emerged as what I believe we are deprogrammers of the matrix in entertainment. And it's basically to prove the enemy's obsession with the Most High, which in turn proves God's existence. For anybody that's guessing, once they see the sustained attack on God's people and the sustained attack on trying to rewrite the Bible, once they begin to see that in everything they look at, that's when some people, that's what it takes for some people to actually believe there's a God, right? And a son, the Son of God who came for us. Sometimes that's what it takes. Now, people like us who are watchmen of these dark forces that play against God's people and humanity. And of course, this ministry isn't for everyone. Some of you have joined the fight. Some of you are much more involved than others in this fight. I know Tara sends me a lot of stuff. She's in the fight. You know, because what happens is you wake up one day and you realize all the lies that you've been lied to. You realize how it's wreaked havoc on your own life and the people that you love. And you want to get up and do something about it. And you realize that it's all based on lies. This is why people suffer. The Bible says, my people suffer from lack of knowledge. Well, it's because people go and watch these movies and get programmed, and this causes them to get poked and all kinds of weird things that they agree to do, right? And God hates sin. He hates lies. And so, this is for those that want to be in the fight. We're in the fight. But don't naysay the people that are in the fight, because you're working against what God is trying to do to wake people up. And every once in a while, people say, why do you still going on Trump? Because, I hate to repeat myself, because Trump is deceiving the most Christians. Biden isn't deceiving any Christians, is he? So who am I going to focus on? The person deceiving the most Christians, and that is Trump. Okay. Now, anyway, not much to see in this series, Outer Range, which is why we're finishing it up today. The episodes essentially devolve into family drama with dry, unrelatable characters as the black hole that's in their land, the bottomless pit. It becomes kind of a backseat side note. Let's get started. So this character, Royal, he becomes the main character. He and his wife own this ranch with the black hole on it, out in the West Pasture, they call it. And he is the kind of the fulcrum of whatever time travel phenomenon is happening surrounding this black hole. Now, he's actually called it a bottomless pit. And then we also realize that it represents a hole in his heart, that somehow he created this hole from some kind of deep pain. And this is what they infer here in Outer Range. Now, I'm going to play this because at this point he contemplates the nature of time. Watch and listen.
If it's driven by chronos or moves of its own accord, nobody understands time and what it really is. Nobody understands that in the creation of man, time had to be broken for man to exist. And nobody knows if God wanted to see what we'd do with that particular problem. Or if God fixed that break, would it define us? Or would it make us the ultimate joke because we think so small?
Because they built these constructs.
Now, here's the truth about all this. And this is a really good example of why we need to do these decodes. All right. War in heaven. What does that mean? Well, the Bible talks about war in heaven. What that means is that God had to fight. He had to send his angels to fight the devil. What that infers is that the devil has some power. Otherwise, God could have just, snapped his fingers and the devil and the angels would have been gone. There would have been no war, right? Now, don't let that scare you, because God always wins. And this whole time thing that we live in, it has to play out. That's the whole point of this. And through faith and a Savior, of course, we survive time to live in God's new heavens and new earth. We're not living in the new earth now. And that doctrine and people that are pushing it is a doctrine of demons, because it's designed to take the edge off of what earth will really be like when it's remade. With no sorrow, no crying, animals laying down together. That's what the new earth will be like. We're not in the new earth now, okay? So already you're seeing the importance of these decodes, because a person who just watched what I just showed you, even if they're a Christian, they're left with a feeling of confusion about time. and they're left with a feeling of hopelessness. But when I explain to you the truth, which I just explained to you, it leaves you more empowered and your faith is strengthened. Now let's keep going on this, because next they're going to depict truth tellers as crazy. This lady that you're going to see next, her name is Autumn. And she's a grown-up version of a little girl from a different timeline. Royal's granddaughter who went lost.
Because they've built these constructs, they've built these realms where they live their lives, and it's very difficult for them to be derailed because it's very destructive. My responsibility to wake them up, but people don't want to be woken up. It's my responsibility to wake them up, but people don't like that because I have no credibility, because I'm an outsider. Will you stop?
Oh.
So there she's depicting us as crazy, the people that are asking people to wake up. Now all of a sudden you watch this and you don't want to be associated with a person like this. Now, Autumn, which is on your right, she plays like a religious zealot that is trying to wake people up. And the whole shows her a vision of a future of her as a cult leader who saves the world. And so she acts out this whole thing out by going on a mission to find Amy, which is herself, even though her name's Autumn. She finds Amy, which is the girl standing here in the pink vest here, and she finds her so that she can abduct her and sacrifice her to the Whole, essentially, because that's what the Whole is telling her to do.
I'm sorry, I'll be quiet while you tell me why you have to hurt me. This is the toll, Amy. The price of being a miracle. Stop. Would you stop going on and on about your dumb plans? We have to do what's necessary.
Just shut up!
So when a person watches that scene, they see a person talking to themselves, and they hear a person saying that their life work is to wake people up. And then you believe that that person's crazy. You feel unsafe because of Autumn's plan to sacrifice herself as Amy. And so what they've done is they've intentionally conflated or combined her desire to wake people up with this sacrifice. This is some deep magic, you guys. It's deep. Someone just left a message on the channel. You're still here? I can't believe people still follow you. This is the kind of magic we're up against. After everything we've shown people and all the synchronicities, there are still people out there who pop in and throw daggers. Let's keep going, you guys, because Royal's family farm is under threat by this guy who's much more rich and powerful family, and he wants the Whole on Royal's land. He wants the West pasture. Why? Because the Whole also contains some kind of mineral, a black mineral that causes the person who ingests it to jump through time. They can literally hop bodies into different timelines and experience or see through the eyes of other individuals in different timelines. Well, is all this sounding familiar? We've been talking about it a lot lately, haven't we? It's the black goo, the black substance that causes the demon possession. And this is how demons jump through time, through possessing different bodies. They open their eyes, and next thing you know, they're in a new body. And it allows the demon into the person. So they're literally depicting that right here. So Royal's counterpart, this guy, he realizes that one of his sons killed the other. And what you're going to hear next is he's going to compare that act to Cain and Abel. Let's take a look.
All your brother did was love you. If I'd known your true colors, I'd have named you Cain.
If I'd known your true colors, I'd have named you Cain. Now, again, without a decode on this, even a Christian would be left with questions about how God handled Cain. Because in the series, this guy, the father, he ends up being the one who pushes his son to kill his brother. How does he do it? He continuously gaslights him. He rejects him. He doesn't love him. He makes him feel inadequate at every step of his life, even though the boy tries and tries and tries and tries to please his father. So what's the truth about all this? How did we deprogram from a scene like this? Well, the devil had taken over part of Cain's personality. And the truth is that Cain was half human. His true colors came out. Now, if you don't believe me, Cain, the name Cain, was originally spelled with a K. And the name was actually spelled Kyan. Well, guess what? Cayenne is cyan, and that means blue blood. And there you heard him say something about the blood, didn't he? True colors. So that they put these little subtle hints in here.
If I'd known your true colors, I'd have named you Cain.
Now, of course, the rest is history, biblical history. God loved Cain despite him not being fully human. The half-human side of him, God had compassion and mercy for. He had so much compassion, as a matter of fact, he said that anyone who harmed Cain would be cursed. But God did not push Cain to murder Abel by rejecting his offering. That is the biblical consensus that everyone has agreed to, because they want to hide the fact that Cain was not human. So it's easier to say, oh, it was because his sacrifice wasn't adequate. God's not that petty. God is not that petty. The reason why God was incapable of receiving any offering from Cain was for the fact that Cain was of his father, the devil, the first murderer, which Jesus explained in the New Testament. The devil, he knew this, and therefore he drew out Cain's murderous tendencies through jealousy. And to prove my point, God's rejection of Cain's offerings and his sacrifices continued throughout history. What are you talking about, Casey? God's rejection of Cain's offerings and his sacrifices continued throughout history. The only people that were required to make a sacrifice of a lamb were the people that God had a covenant with, which are the Israelites. Now we're grafted in through Jesus' sacrifice. We become grafted in with the saved, right? But originally, God only made that covenant where you sacrifice a lamb for your sins with the Israelites. He didn't make that covenant with Cain's people to do the same thing. They weren't obligated to do that. So the rejection of the lamb, or the rejection of the first fruits, or the fruit that Cain offered, was a precedent for the rest of how God dealt with humanity. Do you understand now? It's really easy to understand when you really think about it. When you connect the fact that the Israelites sacrificed lambs when they were in the wilderness for their sins, and you go, oh, wait a minute, Abel also gave a lamb. That's because they were from the same bloodline. It's pretty simple. But the church has complicated things because they're trying to hide something, because a lot of the church is run by these people. Because in the end, they're going to do a rope-a-dope and try to trick everybody, trick the believers into doing something that they can't get back from. They already kind of did it during the pandemic, didn't they? Now let's keep going, because at a certain point, the characters that fall into the hole, let's go back to here. The characters who fall or jump into the hole so that they can time travel, they start running into themselves. They start running into alternate versions of themselves. And well, let's play this so you guys can see this. Here's one example. This guy goes back in the timeline. He finds himself murdered. Now he throws the body into the hole because that's where it came from, right? And this has to be about the enemy cloning himself. The host bodies cloning them for easier possession, right? Now, we already talked about Cain's clones. Remember, the first 6 generation of Cain's offspring had almost the exact same names as Seth's offsprings. There were 6 generations where the names were almost identical, and in some cases were identical, like Jared and Enoch. There were 2 Jareds and 2 Enochs. They were clones. You can look this up for yourself. So why did they do this? Well, the bloodline of Cain is more easily open to possession because he is not fully human. So they clone the best of them for quicker and more complete possession. Now, to prove my point, the offspring of Cain ended up becoming Mizraim, which was Egypt. And now we have the pharaonic bloodline who preserved their DNA for future cloning in the canopic jars, the black goo, because the DNA basically degrades because it's so dark and so evil. It degrades into a black goo inside these canopic jars. You notice that never do we hear of a canopic jar being opened and having the actual organs that were inside of it. You never hear of any discovery like that. There should be some kind of genetic material that they should be telling us about, right? They should be like, oh, okay, we found a canopic jar and there was a heart and lungs in it and whatever else they pull out. And we found it. Nope, they never talk about it. Why? Because it's the black goo. It's just like in the Alien franchise. Those were canopic jars and the black goo came out with the aliens. So, now, that's about it for Outer Range. Now, I was going to combine today's show with the first episode of a different TV series called Evil. And thanks to one of you who told me about Evil and that there was a new season. We had covered and decoded Evil in the past, the first 3 seasons, but now we're on season 4. The first episode released, and we're definitely doing a separate show for Evil. Because why? You ready for this? They literally visit CERN in the first episode and they find the bottomless pit inside of CERN. Now, some of you had mentioned this to me. I think a couple other channels might have decoded this already, but I was like, are you kidding me? So we're going to break down that episode like never before. And you guys are going to see what I found for that. I've already got the show ready for tomorrow. So we'll be back with the newest season of the TV series Evil. That will be tomorrow. Let me go in the chat for a little bit. Yeah, it was on top chat. Sorry about that. I need to be better about that, you guys. Okay, that's enough. Let me know how that sounds, you guys. I love each and every one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow with the next decode. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. Much love.